Welcome back, everybody. We're doing another episode of Indie Reads Aloud. Today, a new to me author is visiting the studio. His name is Jon David. We have encountered each other at a couple of festivals over the past few months, and I wanted to invite him on so that I could learn more about him and his work and share some of it with you. Welcome, Jon. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you very much for having me, Diana.
Sure. I haven't read your work, so I'm super intrigued to hear some of this.
hmm
First of all, before we get into discussion of the book and the reading, I want to kind of introduce everybody to you. Um, for those of you who don't know Jon, where other artists may have many demons, Jon David has just one, Morgalla. Born and raised in Southeast Michigan, he was a nerd long before it was ever popular. Inspired many different elements of nerd culture, whether it be comics, movies, animation, all kinds, and he created a misunderstood see, demonic. There you go, a demon hero. Well,
Demonic.
that's the word I was looking for. Trapped between worlds, but drawn to fight evil and defend life. Now he brings the tale for the world to enjoy. And he has two books so far in this series, with more to come.
hmm
Thanks again, Jon, for being here. I appreciate it. So
Awesome.
tell
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
so the first book is the prequel to the Morgalla Chronicles, and it is titled Savage Peak. Give us a little bit of backstory about this demon and the world she lives in.
Yeah, thank you. The Savage Peak, I like to say that is my Hobbit, to where the other three books in this series are going to be my Lord of the Rings. This is just getting your feet wet to this world, to where hell is the realm of hell, as I call it, is very much a real place, but the reality of it is that it's a far worse place than you could possibly imagine. Imagine if the realm of Mordor decided to invade Earth in modern times, that sort of deal. It is a world where only the strong survive, and if you want to survive, you cannot show any mercy whatsoever. And it's something that Morgalla is suddenly thrust into when it comes to the Savage Peak. She was taken away from hell by her mentor and teacher Delilah when she was very young, when she was like 4 years old, and she was raised in a peaceful area away from any kind of civilization, away from her demonic brethren, and suddenly she's thrust back into it through means that are out of her control, and she is suddenly thrust into these situations. But thankfully, she is armed with her own sword, and she knows how to use it, and she has at least that to help her out. And
Right.
over time, she meets different people. She befriends certain people, and pretty soon she has to make a choice. Whose side are you on? And
Right.
one side is
Okay.
easy. I mean, join us, join the strong, and you'll live. Or you join the weak. They're your friends, but you stand a chance of getting hurt or even dying. So, what are
So
you going to do?
what was it? What was it that drove you to write a female protagonist?
Well, I originally came up with the idea of Morgalla in 1995, back when I was in college, and um, y- she turns 30 years old next year. It's amazing,
Wow.
and I wasn't seeing it too much in a lot of our pop culture. I just thought it would be something different and unique at the time. Anyway, in '95, it was different. Like in comics and manga and anime, you saw that a lot. Um, but you didn't really see it much in mainstream audiences. I thought I was being unique, and then soon after, I came up with my idea. Something called Buffy the Vampire Slayer came out. I thought,
Right.
oh, great,
Right.
yeah. So I was like, oh, well, okay. Well, hey, people are liking Buffy. Hey, maybe they'll like my work. There you are. So yeah, I was just trying to be different, trying to be unique, that sort of deal.
Sure. Sure. No, I understand completely. And then, of course, once you create a character, they start to grow on you and become a part of you, and now you
Mhm.
can't ignore them.
That is correct.
Excellent. I am really excited to hear some of this as you're going to read for us today. So I understand you're going to read a little bit from kind of inside the story, not starting at the very beginning, kind of
That is
about a
correct.
third of the way through. So,
This is chapter 6, page 71 out of 250, 260. So
awesome.
it's sort of like still within the first act,
Okay.
if we had it. So there we go.
Okay.
That
So when you are ready, Jon David, please take the microphone and read a little bit of Savage Peak for us.
excellent. Morgalla woke to the scuttling of some rodents searching for their breakfast. The muscles of her hand flexed around the grip of her knife as her eyes flew open. She didn't sense anyone or anything dangerous around. Breathing a sigh, she plucked a black apple from the branch and hopped down from her hammock and found a note. Meet me at Nathrak Castle. Signed, D. She recognized the handwriting as Delilah's and wondered why she had left early. Morgalla gathered her things and set off to the castle. Arriving, she saw that it was more of a manor, but she guessed that the word castle sounded more impressive. Several demons were playing a game of some sort. Morgalla kept a cloak concealing her arms for the time being until they saw her. They must have sensed how uneasy she felt, for when she got close enough, they all looked at her. There was no bloodlust among them. She lowered her guard, though her hand remained on the blade handle. A guard was leaning against the doorway. He saw her and did nothing. I think I'm expected? She asked. He smirked and motioned for her to enter. The manor was beautiful, with floor of black stone lined with gold. The elegant wood had detailed images carved within. Morgalla approached one and ran her fingers over the elaborate detail. She sensed someone coming down the main staircase and saw a male who motioned for her to follow him. Morgalla did so, walking with the demon through the manor. There was no malice within his soul or his intentions, almost as if he were a blank canvas. Where are we going? She asked. I was not told, the servant replied, and I did not ask. Of course. You will learn that questions are a bad thing around here. Morgalla was led to a large set of doors at the end of a darkened hallway. The doors opened, the light filtered in, but she froze. There was a feeling again, same with the demon from before who tried to kill her. Bloodlust was present. She looked to the servant who was blind to what awaited, but he sensed it too. Morgalla was about to turn and walk away, but he saw the doors at the opposite end of the hallway had closed. Under her cloak, she gripped her knife tightly, and she was ready to summon Hero at the next sign of danger. She saw no choice as she crept through the door and entered the arena. The ground was covered with gravel-like substance, and it looked filthy. A high, circular stone wall surrounded her. Seats ascended like stairs all around with entrances at the top. Morgalla saw Macraca and Delilah at the top of a row talking. Their attention turned to her when they sensed that she had entered. Some other demons were in attendance, but most of the seats were empty. There was a young male at the opposite end of the arena. He was dressed in light clothes with no armor. The sword in his hand and the fact that he was warming up made her take notice. He was fast and skilled. He had an entourage with him, many in the stands, and had a couple in the arena. They whispered things to him, psyching him up for what was to come. The male was about the same age as Morgalla. If she had to guess, the fact that he didn't have horns was a clue. His skin was dark red, his hair black, tied into a tail at the back. His gaze was locked on her, the bloodlust strongest with him. A female approached him, also young. She shot a look of contempt at Morgalla. The female had a narrow, lovely face with delicate features, red skin, and orange eyes. Her black hair was tied into elaborate braids laced with gold. Small white horns adorned her forehead at the hairline. Seeing Delilah walking down the steps, Morgalla jumped up to the wall and held on to the top. Two of Macraca's servants saw what she was doing and shoved her off. They leapt into the arena with her, weapons drawn. Up, one commanded. Cloak off. With hesitation, she did what she was told. How many weapons do you have? The other demon asked. Only one, Morgalla replied. The demon growled. You lie. She felt the slap to her face and fell back again. Morgalla sneered at them both, anger enveloping her soul. They chuckled, her anger amusing. She tossed to them her knife, choosing instead to use Hero. All in attendance took their places among the stands. Morgalla found herself alone with the young male. Sweat already decorated his light red skin, burning his yellow eyes. Now that she had a good look at him, She could tell that he was actually younger than her. Morgalla looked up to Delilah, who had found a seat in the front row. What the hell is going on? Morgalla demanded. A matter of honor, child, for your own good. My own good? He's going looking to kill me, and this is for my own good? Or Kraka's last son, Herrick. He has yet to get his first kill, too. And what if he kills me? I have taught you well, but you must not hesitate. Morgalla glanced over her shoulder. She saw Herrick embrace the young woman and kiss her. That is Zia, his betrothed, Delilah said. It is she who he is fighting for, his source of strength. You must find your source as well. It will keep you alive. Yeah, the fact that I don't want to die. Morgalla sensed the coming attack and ducked. Herrick's blade swung where her head had just been an instant earlier. She rolled and was on her feet immediately. Hero emerged and was in her clenched fist. Her opponent approached, kicking some gravel at her. For a moment she was blinded. He came at her slashing. Morgalla had to use every bit of skill she had to dodge and block his attacks. Metal clashed against metal, and the small audience looked on with great interest. Sparring with Delilah was different than this. She could feel the intensity of the kill emanating from Herrick's soul. Her heart raced, and her breath came quickly. His attacks were strong, and she felt the impact of his blade send shocks up her arm. Morgalla wanted to scream as he hacked and slashed away at her. He finally disarmed her. Hero changed back into a medallion and was lost among the gravel. The audience laughed, all except Delilah. Morgalla rolled again, barely avoiding a slashing sword. She saw for a moment the look of disappointment on Delilah's face. Kraka stood atop with his arms crossed, a permanent frown upon his face. The light gleamed from her medallion, and Morgalla could see where Hero had landed. He was behind Herrick. You don't want to do this any more than I do, Morgalla said. It is a matter of honor, and you will not convince me otherwise. He swung his blade, and Morgalla ducked. She connected a hit to the demon's face. She kicked the weapon from his hand and leaped, her legs scissoring his neck. They both came down to the gravel, and Morgalla could feel the joy springing forth from Delilah's soul. So, you're going to fight me for the entertainment of others? Morgalla asked him. Herrick struggled to speak. It's not amusement, but honor. That word again. Don't be an idiot. Herrick sank his teeth into her calf, and she cried out. She had no choice but to release him with a swift kick to his face, bloodying his nose. They were both on their feet, and Morgalla saw the medallion. She dove, and Hero was unsheathed in an instant, ready for action. When she turned, she noticed her foe was defenseless. His weapon was on the ground, and Morgalla stood between him and his only hope of victory. She could easily feel the fear from his soul, and they stood frozen, looking at each other. Delilah's hands clenched, her eyes intense on her student. Do it. Do it. We can walk away from this, Morgalla said. You're not serious. Morgalla felt the shock from the majority of the audience because she hadn't killed him, but there was one who was terrified. She could only see for a brief moment that Zia was in the audience, the same age as Herrick. Herrick took a step, and Morgalla matched him. Walk away, Morgalla said. Herrick sneered and spat a mouthful of blood to the ground. Disgusting. The audience echoed audible sounds of disapproval. Morgalla didn't care, but Herrick charged at her. With his neck and chest wide open, she could have killed him then and there, but she didn't. He attacked her, striking and forcing his way past. Morgalla fell back, and Herrick had armed again. Delilah was angry. Their swords clashed again, and Morgalla quickly had to find a way to fight him. This battle was different from any before. He was stronger than her and very quick. Letting his blade strike hers was a waste of her energy. She had discovered that dodging his attacks was far better, but even then she would soon grow tired. He roared with each slash and found nothing but air. Their skills showed years of dedicated training, but Herrick's dueling included more anger. Morgalla was scared. Surely they all felt it, but her will to survive was strong. She flinched at a punch to her midsection, but she knew that it was only a ruse. Blocking his real attack, the sword came to her neck, and he punched her face. Falling back again, she felt the wall behind her. He lunged but missed. Morgalla used his momentum to bring his face to the stone. There was a crack, and Herrick's nose was broken. His back open to the attack. She could finish again, but this time she didn't. She stalked to the middle of the arena, wiping sweat from her brow. Herrick held his nose. Blood flowed down from his mouth and chin. Morgalla made eye contact with Zia in the audience. The fear was written on her face, and her eyes locked on Herrick. The girl then looked at Morgalla, and her expression changed to anger. I don't want to kill you, Morgalla said to Herrick, her voice almost desperate. The audience, Delilah included, responded with disgust. But I want to kill you, Herrick roared and charged at her. With his anger as a weapon to Morgalla, the fight didn't last much longer as she soon disarmed him. She held the tip of her sword to his neck. Herrick was terrified. He fell to his knees. Morgalla breathed the fire from her lungs, her eyes intense and showing the anger she now had for him. Delilah was overjoyed, and she clapped. Morgalla disappointed her teacher and lowered her weapon again. She turned her back and walked away. Harry looked up to his father, who sneered and turned his own back, walking to the exit. The young demon called out, Father! Macraca ignored him. Morgalla hung her head, a myriad of emotions running through her. Only one emotion came from Delilah, and that was annoyance. Her expression clearly showed. The solitary emotion from Herrick was rage. He found his sword again and came at Morgalla. She could feel his attack coming from a mile away, and she held her breath. Please, please don't. He roared and slashed at his foe. Herrick found nothing but air as Morgalla ducked and spun around. It was pure instinct, a will to survive that drove her to impale the tip of her blade to his chest. The expression of shock was frozen on both their faces. Morgalla's jaw hung open. What have I done? The young male lost all power in his body as it went cold. His blade fell from his useless fingers and it hit the ground with a clang. He fought for breath, but his lungs froze. Herrick's eyes connected with hers for only a moment. Morgalla could only manage a whisper. I'm sorry. Herrick dropped away from Morgalla's blade. His limp form crashed to the gravel, and in an instant changed to dust. Everyone was silent. Delilah was to her feet immediately. She turned to Macraca, who was still making his way to the exit. A scream cut through the silence, and Morgalla looked to the stands. She saw the young Zia in a state of grief. Other demons held her back. The pain and her rage burned Morgalla's soul. She could only stand there, the tip of her blade stained black with Herrick's blood. All the other demons groaned in disappointment. Many of them got up and left in a huff. The young female, however, jumped into the arena, screaming at Morgalla. The other demons joined her, weapons drawn. Morgalla held Hero up, ready to defend herself from the oncoming onslaught. Delilah stood in front of her protege. Morgalla was surprised to see that she had no weapons unsheathed. All Delilah had to do was point at the symbol of her master. She looked at the demons before her with eyes intense. Zia had to be held back by her allies as she screamed, still in rage. Delilah looked at Morgalla. Let's go. She didn't argue as her mistress took her by the arm as she led her to the exit. Morgalla sucked back the tears building from her broken heart. Surely Delilah could sense them too, her clawed hand gripping Morgalla by the arm, pulling her away. There was also anger, something Delilah was proud to sense. When they were alone, Morgalla fought away from the grip. Don't touch me! What's your problem? My problem? You put me in a death match, that's my problem? Delilah huffed. For your own good. How is that for my own good? Do you know how many enemies I just made? They know that you can and will kill to defend yourself. I just gave you teeth. Whether you know it or not, child, I just gave you the greatest weapon to defend yourself. What's that? A reputation. You really think anyone will mess with you now that you have killed? Morgalla yelled. That's all shit. You did this for your ego. You were ashamed for your having me with no kill. Delilah grabbed Morgalla's arm and pushed her against the wall. You listen to me, child. Welcome to hell. Here, you kill, or you will be killed. Morgalla pushed her and slapped her away. She screamed, I wish you never brought me here. Delilah sneered at her. Why he wanted you away from hell, I'll never know. It's only made you weak. It's weak to value life. Herrick wanted you dead, and you know it. And now his father and his entire family will want me dead. Delilah smiled. Relax. I've killed others in a similar way, and they've never held a grudge. It's the way of things. What? Yes, for it is better to die with a weapon in your hand than live as a coward. Today, you showed fear and compassion. Don't you ever do that again. Delilah turned and started to walk away before she looked over her shoulder. You coming? I'm hungry. Let's go eat. I think I'm going to be sick. Morgalla hunched over to her hands and knees. Delilah sighed and approached her, placing her hands on Morgalla's shoulder. I knew it was a mistake to raise you off-world. It was a mistake bringing me here, Morgalla yelled, slapping away her hand. Delilah looked angry again as she might smack her student. I can't wait till you're finally out of your teens.
Well done. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
thank you.
Tell me, how difficult did you find it to write the various fight scenes that you have in the book? I struggle with combat
Yeah,
scenes of any variety. So did you find that
yeah.
a struggle as well, or is it something that you enjoy writing?
I do enjoy it, but it is difficult. It's like building a house of cards. You got to be careful. You can be a little bit, I think it's better to be a little bit vague. You can just say that the two warriors battled with expert skill. You could say one was clumsy, or maybe one fought with more anger, as I do with Herrick
Mm-hmm.
being angry at her, and she's more defensive. You those elements are absolutely needed. But I'm not too specific to where he attacked, she dodged. He attacked again, she dodged again. Okay, this is getting monotonous. Uh,
Yeah.
Keep it vague enough to where to where you're not boring your reader, but you got to have the action, and you got to have also not just what they're doing, but what they're feeling. And you got to show see, demons in my world, they can sense the emotions of other people. They're very empathic, so they can sense fear, they can sense anger, they can sense love, they can sense all these emotions. And
That's
it's
that's
tricky
a
in there.
very interesting that's a very interesting trait to afford a demon population,
Mm-hmm.
because we interpret them so often in our Western culture as being only one emotion, anger,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Oh no, the
So
negative
so I
emotions,
find it
anything.
really interesting that, yeah. So I found it very interesting that you've afforded demons the opportunity to be impacted that way. I think that's a cool twist that you've done in this
Mm-hmm.
subgenre. So good job
Yeah.
there. Um, was there ever a time that you were writing when you found yourself saying, you know, I gotta kind of go in a different direction because this is becoming too heavy?
Too heavy, as in like maybe too violent or too dark or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah, too violent.
Um, a little bit, but maybe once or twice here and there. But I purposefully tried that. I had all these images in my head, so I think I was. I don't know how others writers write. Are you writing with words in mind, or are you actually writing with like you're watching a movie? I've seen way more movies than I've read more books, and
Mm,
I'm fixing that. I'm reading more. I'm reading more books that that have been adapted. Like I'm reading a lot of Stephen King works. I just finished The
mm-hmm.
Hunt for Red October, so these are
Okay.
all adapted works. And whenever I was writing, I got this image in my mind of this scene. And the real trick is describe this scene so therefore it's absolutely clear in a reader's mind. And I think all writers have that difficulty and have that challenge. And
Sure.
yeah, so just trying to again, I made these deliberately not as violent or as dark as I could have. I watch my language. I never say the F word.
Right.
Sure, characters die like Herrick just did. Um, but I could have made his death far more violent. I've read some
Oh
of
yeah.
Stephen
Yeah, it could
King.
have been a lot more brutal. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could have been a lot more graphic. Stephen King is very graphic with some of his death scenes. You're not
Right.
surprised. It's Stephen King. It's a horror book. So
Right.
there you
Yeah.
go.
You
So
kind of
do
expect it. Sure.
you kind of expect it? You have absolutely no idea what to expect when you're reading my work. So I decided to deliberately wheel that back. I want to
Yeah.
keep my audience more broad, so that's why I
Sure.
kept it that way. And so therefore, I have parents ask me all the time if they're like shopping for their children, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I got a 13-year-old. Is this appropriate for them? Be honest with me, man. I know you're trying to make a sale, but be honest with me.
Yeah.
I'll be
Right.
honest
Right.
with you. I once had a parent, I forget how old the child was, but they were under 10. And just, but they read at a much higher level. They read at a much higher level. I'm sure they do. I'm a PG-13 movie. How about that?
Right,
How about that?
right.
So
Yeah,
that works.
yeah.
And I watch my like I said, I watch my language because kind of ironic. There are some parents who
It's
would
important,
much
and
rather have.
I'm glad. Much rather have. I'm sorry.
No, I was about to say that I kind of find it ironic that there are some parents who are more concerned about how much naughty language is in this, yes, as opposed to
Mm,
how much violence. To which I guess
well,
maybe
sure.
because the kids know that the violence isn't real. I think that's how my parents were when I was watching violent movies as a kid.
Sure, yeah. And it's different with every generation. But I'm very pleased that you're cognizant of your reader has access to and that younger people might see it. So I appreciate that in you. Thank you coming onto the program. I'm really excited to read your work. I've bought both your books now and I'm looking forward to getting through them. So thank you for this great introduction and I'll look forward to having you back on the program.
Most excellent, Diana. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.